I found my girlfriend's texts to her ex. I'm just waiting for his inheritance, then I'm yours. I said nothing. I faked a bankruptcy notice and left it on my desk. She left me the next day. Her panicked calls started the moment I posted my new house on Instagram. I, 34 male, always thought the moment of discovery would be loud. A scream, a shattered plate, a slammed door. Instead, it was silent. Utterly, devastatingly silent. It was a Tuesday. I was working from home, syncing my files across my devices, when Evelyn's messages popped up on the shared tablet. She never bothered to log out. She was messaging Brian, her ex, the one she swore was a toxic chapter she'd slammed shut. My breath just stopped. I read the last few exchanges, my heart turning into a cold, heavy stone in my chest. I felt like I'd stumbled into some messed up aita post where the answer is screamingly obvious to everyone but the person living it. Brian, he's still talking about that inheritance all the time. He wants to buy a house, us, a future. It's nauseating. Don't lose your nerve, babe. I can't wait much longer. I won't. I'm just waiting for his inheritance, then I'm yours. Promise. I closed the tablet. The air in our apartment, the one I paid for, suddenly felt thin and foreign. I looked around at the life I thought we were building. The framed photos of us smiling on vacation, the stupid, expensive coffee machine she had to have. It was all a set, a stage for her performance. The anger I expected didn't come. What came was a chilling, absolute clarity. I wasn't dealing with a partner having doubts. I was dealing with a strategist, a predator. Hysteria felt like a waste of energy. She had a plan, so I needed one too. For the next 3 days, I was the perfect boyfriend. I made her dinner. I asked about her day. All the while I was observing. The way her eyes would glaze over when I talked about the future. The quick, hidden smile on her face when she'd get a text. She was an actress, and I was suddenly watching the behind-the-scenes footage. The betrayal was so profound, it was almost fascinating. The inheritance was real. My grandmother had passed away 6 months prior, leaving me a sum that wasn't Bill Gates rich, but it was certainly life-changing. Enough to finally get out of the renting cycle and buy a small house. I'd been so excited to tell Evelyn, to share this foundation with her. She'd clapped her hands together, her eyes wide with what I had mistaken for joy. It was just avarice. My plan was simple, deceptively so. On Friday morning, I found a boilerplate bankruptcy notice online. It looked official enough. I spent 20 minutes with a fine point pen, filling in my name, forging a case number, adding the letterhead of a fictitious law firm. I left it on my desk, partially tucked under a stack of mail, but visible enough for anyone snooping. That evening, I went for a long run. I needed the world to be just my feet on the pavement and the air in my lungs. When I returned, the apartment was still. Too still. She was gone. She was gone. On the kitchen counter where we used to leave each other notes was a single folded piece of paper. I'm so sorry. I just can't do this anymore. The financial instability is too much pressure for me. I need to be on my own and figure things out. I wish you the best. The speed of it was the only thing that truly wounded me. No fight, no discussion. Just a clean, tactical exit now that the asset, me, was supposedly worthless. It confirmed everything. I sat on the floor of my empty living room, not crying, but feeling the vast echoing space she'd left behind. It was the loneliest I'd ever felt. For a few weeks, I heard nothing. I began the process of untangling our lives, packing her things into boxes. I grieved the woman I thought she was, the future I thought we had. Then my grandmother's money cleared. The house I'd been looking at, the one I'd imagined her walking through, was still on the market. A modest 2-bedroom with a porch and a small, overgrown yard. It wasn't our house anymore. It was my sanctuary. As a cash buyer, I was able to fast-track the closing. It still took just under 3 weeks of navigating inspections, titles, and paperwork, but in the world of real estate, it felt like lightning speed. Last night, I drove to my new home for the first time as its owner. The air smelled like cut grass and possibility. I took a picture. Just me, sitting on the top step of the porch, holding a single key. The caption was simple, "New beginnings." I didn't tag a soul. I just let it float out into the ether. It took 7 minutes. My phone screen lit up, "Evelyn, an incoming call." I ignored it. It lit up again, "Evelyn." Then a text, then another call, then a call from a number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail. It was Brian. My phone buzzed incessantly for the next hour. A flurry of panicked, confused, and increasingly angry messages. I didn't answer. I just sat on my porch, took a sip of beer, and watched the sun go down on my new life. The storm had arrived right on schedule. Update. The calls and texts didn't stop. They became a kind of frantic background noise to the tasks of moving. I saved the voicemails. They were, in their own way, masterpieces of manipulation. Evelyn started with a saccharine sweet confusion. "Hey, it's me. I saw your post. A new house? I don't understand. The notice. Call me back. I'm really worried about you." Brian's were less subtle, just guttural anger. "You played her, man. That's messed up. You think you can just lie to people like that? You owe her. You call her back and you make this right. Owe her." The audacity was breathtaking. After 3 days of this, while unpacking boxes in my new living room, I finally answered. It was Evelyn. "Oh my God, you're okay," she began, the relief in her voice so fake it was almost comical. "I was so worried. I saw that bankruptcy letter, and then you disappeared, and now you have a house? What is going on?" I kept my voice flat, calm. "You left, Evelyn." "I left because I was scared. I thought you were ruined. How could you lie to me like that?" There it was. The pivot. The gaslighting. I was now the villain for faking a financial collapse that proved she was a gold digger. Classic. "The letter you left was pretty clear," I said, cutting a box open with a knife. "You said you needed financial stability. I assume you concluded there was none to be had with me, so you left. End of story." There was a pause. I could hear her breathing, the gears turning. "That's not fair," she finally said, her voice shifting from wounded to indignant. "I invested 2 years of my life in you. In us. I helped you. We looked at houses online for months. I helped you plan." "You looked at Zillow, Evelyn. That's not a contribution." "It is," she insisted, her voice rising. "I was a supportive partner. That house, that money, I'm entitled to a share of it. That was supposed to be our future. You don't get to just take it all for yourself." The silence that followed was heavy. I let her words hang in the air. I wanted to remember them. "Evelyn," I said, my voice dangerously quiet. I saw the texts. To Brian. Complete silence. Not even a breath. For a full 10 seconds. Then the explosion. A torrent of excuses. It wasn't what it looked like. He was just an old friend. I was being insecure and pushing her away. She was just confused. She was keeping her options open because I was being distant. "You were waiting for my inheritance," I stated. It wasn't an accusation. It was a fact. "Then you were his." She hung up. An hour later, the notification started on my Instagram post. "Brian. This guy is a liar and a manipulator," he commented. "Don't believe anything you see." And another, "Enjoy the house you stole from her." My friends started texting me, confused. "Is everything okay?" I didn't reply to them yet. I just deleted Brian's comments and blocked him. Then came the text from Evelyn, the escalation I was waiting for. "Tabat," I almost laughed when I read it. "I'm talking to a lawyer. I'm going to sue you for my share and for the emotional distress you caused me by lying. You'll be hearing from my attorney." I read the text, and for the first time, a real smile touched my lips. It was perfect. She was so blinded by her own greed she couldn't see the hole she was digging. I spent the rest of the evening setting up my new Wi-Fi and methodically removing her from every account we shared. Netflix, Spotify Premium, Amazon. A digital exorcism. Each click of the mouse felt like a small, satisfying victory. The last thing I did before bed was call my old landlord about the apartment. I needed to get my security deposit back. All $2,850 of it. Update: the official-looking envelope arrived in my new mailbox. She'd actually done it. Evelyn had filed a small claim suit against me for $5,000. I read the filing, standing in my sun-drenched kitchen. The sheer nerve was almost admirable. The claim listed compensation for services rendered in financial and future planning, and emotional damages resulting from deceptive and manipulative practices. She was framing my quiet little test as a malicious scheme to emotionally torture her. But that wasn't the only problem. My old landlord had called me back, his voice thick with apology. The $2,850 security deposit had already been paid out. To Evelyn. Since her name was still on the lease when it ended, she'd gone to the management office the day after I moved out, claimed I'd agreed to let her handle it, and signed the paperwork. The landlord said it was now a civil matter between me and her. Of course it was. My pain had now completely solidified into purpose. This was no longer just about a broken heart, it was about holding people accountable for their actions. My response was methodical. First, the small claims suit. I didn't need a lawyer. The truth was my best weapon. I started a file. In it went a printout of her breakup note. Then, printouts of the text messages between her and Brian. I highlighted the key phrases. I'm just waiting for his inheritance. And I need financial stability. The narrative was clear, and I was merely the editor. Second, the security deposit. I drafted a formal demand letter. It was polite, professional, and utterly inflexible. It cited the exact clause in our lease about the return of deposits and stated that she had 14 days to return the full $2,850 to me via certified check before I would file a separate small claims action against her for theft. I sent it via certified mail and emailed her a copy for good measure. The real confrontation came out of nowhere. I was leaving my office building downtown when I heard my name being shouted. It was Brian, jogging towards me across the plaza, his face a mask of self-righteous fury. "We need to talk," he said, getting right in my personal space. He was bigger than me, an intentional act of intimidation. "We have nothing to talk about," I said, not backing down. "You're gonna make this right with Evelyn. You humiliated her. You're a psycho. You know that? Playing games like that." "The only game," I said calmly, "was the one she was playing with me, for money." He scoffed. "She invested years in you. You owe her something." "The only thing anyone owes," I said, looking him dead in the eye, "is my $2,850 security deposit, the one my ex-SO took." A smirk played on his lips. He leaned in, his voice low and mocking. "She said you told her she could have it for her troubles. Who do you think a landlord is going to believe?" His response told me everything. He wasn't just aware of it, he was proud of it. They had coordinated their story. "Thanks, Brian," I said, a genuine note of gratitude in my voice. "That's a very interesting perspective." I turned and walked away, leaving him standing there, confused by my lack of rage. The moment I got to my car, I pulled out my phone and typed an email to myself, documenting the conversation, his words, the date, and the time. Brian claimed Evelyn told him I agreed to let her have the deposit. Clear coordination and a fabricated story. It was another beautiful little piece of my file. The social fallout was messier. Evelyn had been busy spinning her tale, and I, the OP of this whole mess, was painted as the villain. I heard she was telling everyone I'd had a breakdown, faked a bankruptcy to control her, and then kicked her out. Some people bought it. My phone got quieter. It stung, I won't lie. To be so thoroughly rewritten as the villain in your own story is a unique kind of pain. But I trusted the process. The truth has a way of coming out. You just have to be patient. Final update. The day of the small claims hearing felt strangely calm. It was a sterile, unimpressive room with fluorescent lighting and worn-out chairs. Evelyn and Brian were already there, sitting together, whispering. Evelyn was dressed professionally, like a woman who was about to be deeply wronged. Brian just looked thuggish, his arms crossed, glaring at me. They thought they were in an episode of a courtroom drama where the most emotional argument wins. Evelyn went first. She gave a tearful, passionate speech about my deception and the psychological toll it took on her. She spoke of the future I'd stolen from her. It was a compelling performance. Then it was my turn. I didn't give a speech, I just presented my evidence. I walked the judge through it, step by step. Exhibit A, I said, placing the printout of her breakup note on the judge's bench. Evelyn's own words, stating she was leaving due to financial instability the day after she believed I had gone bankrupt. Exhibit B, I continued, are text messages between Evelyn and Mr. Shaw from the week prior. I read one aloud into the quiet room. "I'm just waiting for his inheritance, then I'm yours." The judge, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s, slowly lifted her eyes from the paper and looked at Evelyn. For the first time, Evelyn's composure cracked. And Exhibit C is a timeline showing Evelyn left my apartment on May 10th, and the inheritance in question did not clear my bank account until early June, weeks later. The judge didn't need much more. She dismissed Evelyn's case with prejudice, her voice sharp. "Ms. Hayes, your claim is not only meritless, it is audacious. To seek compensation for a partnership you clearly intended to defraud is an abuse of this court's time." Then she turned to my countersuit for the security deposit. Evelyn repeated the lie. claiming I had told her she could have it. The judge looked at Brian. "Mr. Shaw, were you aware of this arrangement?" Brian, trying to look helpful, nodded. "Yeah, she told me he said she could have it." The judge leaned forward. "So your testimony is that you were aware she was taking the full deposit based on a verbal agreement?" "Yeah," he said, puffing out his chest. I was then allowed to testify about my conversation with him outside my office, presenting my time-stamped notes. I explained how he'd tried to intimidate me and smugly told me their story. The contradiction between his aggressive confidence with me and his helpful boyfriend act in court was stark. The judge saw it instantly. The lie had become more damaging than the truth ever could have been for them. She ruled in my favor, ordering Evelyn to pay me the full $2,850 plus my court filing fees. Outside the courtroom, their hushed whispers erupted into a furious, sibilant argument. The united front had crumbled into bitter blame. The story of what happened in that courtroom spread faster than Evelyn's lies ever had. The mutual friends who had grown distant sent awkward, apologetic texts. "Man, I'm so sorry. I had no idea." I just replied, "No worries." I didn't have the energy for anything more. Their validation wasn't the prize. A week later, I heard through the grapevine that the public drama, coupled with his aggressive attitude, had caused problems for Brian at his job. He worked in sales, where reputation is everything. Apparently, his company wasn't thrilled about him making threats in the lobby of a client's building. My employer's security had officially barred him from the premises after the incident. The last communication I ever received was a single text from Evelyn, days after the judgment check arrived in my mail. "I hope you're happy in your stupid house all alone. You ruined my life." I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel joy. I just felt nothing. It was a message from a ghost. I deleted it, blocked her number, and went outside to my yard. It's been a few months now. The silence they left behind is no longer empty. It's filled with the sound of birds in the morning and the quiet hum of my own life. I've planted a garden. I've reconnected with the friends who mattered. The scar from the betrayal is still there. I think a small part of it always will be. But it doesn't ache anymore. I didn't need them to face some grand, cinematic downfall. I just needed them to face the natural, mundane consequences of their own choices. They weren't master villains. They were just greedy, entitled people who were so sure of their own cleverness, they never saw the simple, obvious trap they were setting for themselves. The best revenge, I've learned, isn't loud. It's the quiet satisfaction of building a better life on the ashes of a false one. It's sitting on your own porch in a house you earned, knowing you handled the worst with a calm heart and a clear head. They didn't ruin my life. They just cleared the way for my real one to begin.